So this session would especially is curated for a young professional like you, and this session would be of 4 days. That means starting from today until Thursday, we would be having a session. Time won't be a constraint for it, to be precise, because it is a one-to-one session that we are having. We don't have much participants, so at any point of time, if you want a break, let me know.
Okay.
Also, at any point of time, I want a break, I would definitely take it. So just in case, let me just give you some ground rules that we would be going through for this entire 4 days. Um, we would be having kind of an hourly breaks and just two breaks for maybe a 45 minutes for a lunch break and maybe a 15 or 20 minutes for a tea or a coffee break. But yes, there would be an hourly breaks as well. In between. The second thing is at any point, if you feel that you have your mind is full of and you cannot take it, you can stop me at that point of time. We would continue from next day because there are not many participants in the batch. So it is a one-to-one session that we have. So you have a USP as of now that these are the 6 topics that we would be covering in this entire 4 days journey. First is software development lifecycle. Next is configuration management and infrastructure as a code. Third is resilient cloud solutions. Fourth is monitoring and logging. Fourth is incident and event response. Sixth is security and compliance. And the rest one is your other services and exam preparations. So these are the kind of an maybe a generic one, but there are total 6 domains that we would be covering on. So
Okay.
let's start the session. Just to give you an introduction, my name is Om and I would be your instructor. I have total 15 years of experience in an IT, majorly into cloud. So I have 8+ years of solution architect design and deployment experience. And I work with major clients across the globe with Amazon to take care of all the cloud related stuffs in the world. So I take care of infrastructure, I take care of migrations, I take care of build it from scratch. I also take care of giving client suggestions based on their use cases, their requirements, etc., etc. Okay, I will try my best to give you all the insights that are related to cloud computing and whatever doubts you have. I'm a single point of contact. You can reach out to me. My email address, I would be sharing it to you shortly. Let me just
Okay.
share my email address. In case if you require any assist, you can reach out to our support team. Also, you can reach out to me as well. Whenever I'm free, definitely I would read the mails and I would revert it to you ASAP. So
Okay.
my email address is cloud@gmail.com. This is my email address. I've just pinged it. It's sharma.awscloud@gmail.com. You can reach out to me anytime, even after your session is completed, if you have any questions or queries. I will try my best to revert you on the same day. In case if I'm stuck or occupied with some work, definitely I would take it in a day or so, whenever I get time. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's begin domain number 1. That is um, CDLC. Do you have any idea what does this stand for? CDLC.
Is it the software development lifecycle?
Correct. That's bingo. So that is software development life cycle. Now, what we would be doing is we would be automating this life cycle. That means what? The moment you create a code until the time you deploy that code into any environment, what are the various steps that you follow is what we are going to cover up. So first is CI/CD. What does CI/CD stands for?
I think is a continuous integration and continuous deployment and development.
Correct. Right. So that stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. What we
Okay.
would be learning is we would be learning how to create AWS resources, the fundamentals. We would be also taking care of how to create an AWS resources programmatically or using a command line interface. We would be deploying a code using AWS Beanstalk. We would also take steps to um, what are the manual steps that are taken up. We would be taking care of our code in the repository and have to deploy the code automatically. We would also take care of all the CI/CD rules and the principles that are associated with it. Now I would be sharing this slide also with you, so don't worry about the content. Definitely, if you want it as a reference, you can get it from like you can refer it as well uh, whenever you are free. So first, let's start this CI/CD or module number one. What we would be covering up, we would be covering up code commit, code pipeline, code build, code deploy, code star, code artifact, and code guru. All these things we would be covering up. Let's start with CI, that is continuous integration. Now, what happens is there are many developers who works in a company or in an organization, right? Now, when they are working, what they need is they need a central place where they can push a code. Now, why the developer wants to push a code? In case if a developer wants that or if a second developer wants the same code to be taken up as a reference, then what the developer first does is the developer first takes the code from there and then takes it as a reference. Clear? Now, assume that a developer pushes a code to a code repository. That this is a developer, this is your code repository. So he created a code and he certainly, or the moment when he created this code, he pushes that code into this repository. Now, what happens is this is generally done, or this repository is called as a GitHub or code commit or Bitbucket, right? So it's a place where your code resides. Now, which code, which this developer has pushed. Now, if there are 10 developers who are working on the same code, all the 10 developers can push the same code into the same repository at the same point of time. Okay, all the 10 developers can push the same code at the same point of time into that same repository. Now, the test and the build server checks the code as soon as it is pushed. Now, this build server, what it does is the moment the developer puts the code into this repository, it builds and checks the code itself. Okay, now when the build or the test code is checked, it provides the results back to the developer. So the developer gets the feedback about the test and that check whether it has been passed or failed. That means it is kind of a confirmation that this build server is going to send it back to your developer. Think it like this way, that if you send a WhatsApp message, the moment you send a WhatsApp message, you get a blue tick. So what is that blue tick that comes up? It simply means that the message has been delivered and it has been read. So in a similar fashion, the moment the developer puts the or pushes the code into this repository is then having a build server which fetches this code, builds it and tests it, and finally provides the results back to the developer. Now, why this build server is needed? To find out any bugs or to check if there is any bug which may trouble us in future. Also, it takes care of a faster delivery because now the code is duly tested out. Now, if the code is tested, then sooner I can move that code to the higher environments as well, right? Because the code is completely error free. Third is you deploy it often. Now, once your code is duly tested and it is built successfully, then in future, you don't need to retest it, right? Because it is already tested. You can simply go and deploy it. That means you can have a frequent builds. And finally, this can be or happier developers as they are unblocked. That means what? This gives a feel of happiness to the developer because now they completely know that my code is completely done and tested, and in that case it is completely error free, so I don't need to worry about that as well.
Mhm.
Is this clear to you right now?
Yes.
Right, so at any point of time, if you want me to repeat something, you can let me know and I would be more than happy to revert or reply to you back or repeat that topic. Fine?
Okay. The part where you said you used the WhatsApp as an example, the message and the blue tick. Could you repeat that part so I'll get it?
Yes, sure. So what I said was, let's say I am a developer, okay? Or assume that I want to send you a message or a WhatsApp message. Now, when I send you a WhatsApp message, how do I know whether Conscience has received that message or not? Second thing, if she has received it, she has read it or not. So that blue tick that comes up gives me a notification that the message has been reached to consigns mailbox or WhatsApp chat. And now the second blue tick that comes up confirms that she has read it. Correct. So the same thing is happening over here. The moment this build servers builds and tests the code, the results is sent back to the developer as a confirmation. So now the developer knows that my code was duly built and it has been tested. That gives him 100% conformity that in no case now or from now on an error can come in my code.
Okay.
Fine. That is what
Mhm.
I was referring to. Now, I have a habit of giving you real life examples or the examples which are too much catchy so that you can relate to it. And that is what the extension was when I gave you an WhatsApp example,
Okay. Got it.
right? So what happens is many times, even in an interview as well, and even in real life, you don't remember the technical terms, but you remember the context in which those terms were taken up. So now if I give you an example for WhatsApp and I ask you to compare it with build and test, now you would be 100% like it would be in your memory forever that this is what we were referring to. Clear?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that is why we have a confirmations over here. Now we had talked about CI. Now we would talk about CD. Now, before I move on to continuous before delivery, let's talk about one more thing on continuous integration. Now, what is happening in this phase is if I let's say if I build a code that is like sum of two numbers to add A and B, right? Push it into code, it got tested and built, revert. Now next day, someone says me modify a change and make it sum of three numbers. Again, I move or create a code, push it into repository, build and test it, and I get a reward. Fourth day, I get sum of four numbers, five numbers, six numbers, seven numbers, eight numbers. That means what I'm doing is continuously I'm enhancing that code. Correct? Now, every time when I'm enhancing that code, this repository and this build server is taking 100% control over the code base. Also, it is taking care of the code and trying to check in background whether there is an error which may have arisen or not.
Okay.
You're getting it?
Yes.
So this is what is happening in continuous integration. So the moment you create a code, it gets continuously integrated with the repository and it gets built and tested. So now the developer knows that the code which is residing in this repository is completely error free. Fine.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about continuous delivery. What does continuous delivery means? Now, in case of a continuous delivery, it ensures that the softwares can be released reliably whenever needed. So now let's say if you want to release version 1 in first week of Jan, then you want to release version 2 in second week of February, then you want to release version 3 in third week of February, on and on and on. Now you already have your latest code ready in your repository, which is built and tested. Now, what you want to do is you just want to release it. That means what you have sailed until here. You have created a code, moved into a repository. That repository will fetch the code or during the build and it would test out. So what is happening is these three stages are completely done and every developer would deploy these things before they completely deploy onto the servers. That means what? Now, if they want the release to happen in first week of Jan, seamlessly, this goes like this. Second one release this, third release like this. That means what? It would completely ensure that the release are happening error free and are happening very quickly. Clear? Now, previously in an IT ecosystem, I think you're too much young, but if you can relate to it like 4 or 5 years before, or maybe 10 years before in an IT ecosystem, what used to happen was that it took 3 to 5 months or even more than that to completely move a code from development stage into a production stage. And generally what was happening was there was a 5-day release. That means it took a week's time to deploy that code when from one environment into another. You're getting it? Now, that is not the case. That is not the case in today's era. Why? Because we are now going for shorter releases. First thing, because the time to deliver, that is what we call TTD, is reduced. Why? Because customer preference changes within fractions of seconds. Today, customer wants X. Maybe after 10 minutes, customer says, I don't want X now, I want Y. Third day, he comes up, he says, I don't want neither X, neither Y, I want A. 1 month afterwards, he says, I didn't want anything, I want now P. You're getting it? That means what? Gradually, as per the market, the customer requirements are changing on. Now, when the customer requirements are changing, it becomes too much hard for the developer to cope up, right? Now, the moment he starts building as per customer requirement A, next day the customer comes and says, I want B now. So all the efforts that the customer or the developer has put in creating a code A has now gone into vain. Correct. Next day, again, he's going to start it from scratch to build code B as per customer requirement. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now, on the third day, if the customer says, I neither want A nor B, now I want Z. So now 2 days efforts gone. Now the developer would again start building it from scratch on D. So this would go endlessly. And ultimately what is going to happen is there is no progress. So what is the remedial for it is that if you go with a shorter sprints, your time to deliver a product into a market gets reduced. Also, since the customer requirements keeps on changing dynamically, then the moment you have a code base ready, in the same code base, you can make enhancement and then quickly move it into a release mode. That would give you a shorter time for deployment and delivery. And that is what DevOps is all about. Right? That means now you are shifting from one release within 3 months or within 6 months to 5 days release. That means within every sprint, you are releasing something else or the another. And those products or those things are as per the customer requirements, but they are in the shorter releases. And that is what we call minor releases or miniature releases. Am I correct?
Yeah, I got it.
Now, second thing is all these releases generally automates the deployment using code deploy, Jenkins, and other development or other CI/CD tools. Clear? So that is what we call continuous delivery. Please remember, it is not continuous integration and continuous deployment. It is continuous integration and continuous delivery as a
Delivery.
whole,
Okay.
right? So D stands for delivery. Now, technology stacks of CI/CD. Now in cloud computing, how that CI/CD is now crafted and what are the terminologies that we use. The first one is the code commit is called as AWS code commit. So in real life, the code which you put or which you push into your Git or your bit bucket.
It's GitHub. I use Git most of the time.
Right.
I'm more
Whatever it
familiar
is.
with Git than
Huh,
Bitbucket.
no problem. Just a second, just a second. My headphones went off. Just a minute. Right. So that is true as well. Even I'm more familiar with GitHub uh, in comparison to Bitbucket. But just giving an example that both GitHub and Bitbucket are code repositories. That means what? There you save your code. Okay, in these repositories, you save your code. That means your code, which is ready to be deployed into production, is completely saved. So that code in cloud is what we call code commit. Okay. Now, Jenkins or any other third-party CI server or what we call continuous integration server that builds your code and test it. Now, everyone knows what is Jenkins and what does it do. Jenkins, what it does is it compiles your code. That means it builds your code and then tests the code. If the code is dully tested, then it pushes into your deployment stage, and finally your provisioning or or whatever your resource is completely deployed. So the same thing is happening in cloud, but Jenkins, since it is a third party, now that has been completely replaced with what you called code build. Okay,
Okay.
that has been completely replaced with code build. Clear?
Yeah.
Now, what does code build does is it builds, that means it compiles your code and then tests you save your code. Okay, in these repositories, you save your code. That means your code, which is ready to be deployed into production, is completely saved. So that code in cloud is what we call code commit. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, Jenkins or any other third-party CI server or what we call continuous integration server that builds your code and test it. Now, everyone knows what is Jenkins and what does it do. Jenkins, what it does is it compiles your code. That means it builds your code and then tests the code. If the code is dully tested, then it pushes into your deployment stage, and finally your provisioning or or whatever your resource is completely deployed. So the same thing is happening in cloud, but Jenkins, since it is a third party, now that has been completely replaced with what you called code build. Okay,
Okay.
that has been completely replaced with code build. Clear?
Yeah.
Now, what does code build does is it builds, that means it compiles your code and then tests the code. Now, why test the code? It simply means that during testing, it checks for any errors. And if there is any error, it would come out. And if the errors are not there, then what is going to happen? That it would simply compile it. That means it would build it and then pass it. You can relate to it how Jenkins work, I think. Now, once your build and test are completed, that means your code is completely compiled and built, then it is ready to be deployed. And that deployment is generally done using a service called Beanstalk or
Yes.
Elastic Beanstalk. Clear? And that phase is what we called AWS code deploy. So we have three steps: code commit, code build, and code deploy. Code commit, code build, and deploy, or you can say CBD. CBD, that is commit, build, and deploy. What is it? Commit, build, and
Deploy.
that's correct. Now let's go one by one and understand what each has to say. Now, code commit is nothing but your version control. We all know from our local, we push the code into a repository. Now, each code is having a certain version. Now, if I make a change in the code and I push that code, it has certain version or maybe certain, let's say, version A. I put it. Now, I make few more changes next time, push the code, version B. Third time I move more changes, push the code, version C, version D, etc., etc. So the same thing is happening over here. The code commit is nothing but your version control. It is the ability to understand various changes that happen to the code over a period of time, possibly a rollback. That means what? What does version control do? It basically checks for all the changes being made in your code over a period of time. Okay, so when I push code A, then B, then C, then D, that means now I have four versions. So right from first version, that is A, until fourth version, that is D, I continuously check for what all versions are there, and in each version what changes have been made. Remember the same example that I'm taking on. I took sum of two numbers in the first code, then I took sum of three numbers, then four numbers, and then five numbers. So what is happening is from A to B, what I saw was previously it was sum of two numbers. That means two variables were passed, two variables were added. In second one, three variables are passed, three variables are added. Third one, four variables are passed, four variables are added, and in fifth case, five variables are passed and five variables are added. So I can have a conformity that if I am a master branch, I can compare and deploy which one is ready to release branch. Okay, I can compare and deploy. That means which branch is ready to deploy.
Okay.
Right, because now at least I have a window, right? I have a clear visualization of which is the correct one, which can be moved into deployment or which can be moved into production. Assume that which can be moved into production because I have now a complete faith over it. You're getting
Yeah.
it?
Mm-hmm.
So because you are in a position to make a decision. Remember, now let's say I would give you an example. Again, let's go to a real life example. Let's say you're planning to buy an iPhone this Christmas. Now, when you want to buy an iPhone, you have three iPhones with you. 512, sorry, 256, 512, and 1 TB. Now, how you're going to make a decision? Either on the basis of your pocket, how much it is allowing, or on the basis of the storage, or on the basis of any other feature that is specifically for or as per your requirement. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? Now,
Yes, you're correct.
assume, right, assume that price is something that you are pretty much keen on, that I can spend only this much on the product. So even if you're tempted for 1 terabyte iPhone, you would go with only 256 because you cannot pay $200 extra. You're getting it? That means what? Based on certain facts and figures, you had an option to compare a product and then make a best choice. So similarly, whenever a developer is there, he or she pushes the code, this version controlling system actually checks for the correct one, and then you can compare it and then push the final code and reject all the ones which are not needed. Now, every time you push the code into this version controlling, it would overwrite it until unless you are not working on a branch. If you are directly pushing it into a master, it would override. However, if you are working on a branch, then it won't override until unless you move it into a master. Clear?
Yes.
Now, all these are enabled using a version controlling system such as Git. Now, what is Git? Git is nothing but the same version controlling system that helps you to move your code from your local into GitHub. Right? It is a tool that helps you to move your code using a version controlling system from your local into a GitHub repository. So Git repository can be synchronized on your computer, but it is usually uploaded on a central online repository. It can be synchronized with your local, but it is kind of a online repository. Now, what are the benefits? The first benefit is collaborates with other developers. All your developers who are working with you, they can collaborate with it because if there are 10 developers, each would be working on a specific code on a specific branch. Now they would be pushing the code into their branches and then they would merge it with the master. So I need explicit permissions to merge my code with the master branch. If I see that certain changes can be done on this master or on this on that branch, I would ask the developer to do or make the changes. Once he is done that or done with the changes, he again pushes the codes and then moves it into the master. Fine.
Yes.
The second is make sure that the code is backed up somewhere. every code is kept somewhere because I cannot lose the original code integrity. Even if I merge that code, I should have a reference, right? Based on what parameters I merge that code. Third is make sure it is fully viewable and auditable. That is what I said right now, that that code has to be fully visible and auditable as well. Now, let's talk about code commit. The next one in more in detail to be precise. Uh, this is your, there are two people, Emma and John. Now, first is each has an access to a Git. So Git repositories can be expensive, but they are available and most of the people uses Git only. Git and GitHub is the best combination that any industry people use over a Bitbucket as well, but they are using it. Now what happens is when you talk about AWS code commit, let's talk about the first part, that is your private Git repository. So Emma and John are developers and they are working on a piece of code in their private Git repository. Now that Git repository has no size limit. That means it can scale up seamlessly. Got it? It can scale up seamlessly. It is of, sorry,
Yeah, I got it.
no problem. Now it can scale up seamlessly. Also, since it is a fully managed and highly available, so there are no chances that it would be having a glitch at any point of time.
Right.
Okay. Third is code only is AWS cloud account, increase security and compliance. That means what? Since it is in-house product from AWS, it gives you enhanced security and compliance. That means what? You can trust 200% on Amazon Web Services that your code will never be lost. That your code will never be lost and it would be completely secured as well as encrypted both at transit as well as at rest. Clear?
Yes.
Now, there are provisions that you can move this code, which is there in AWS repository to Jenkins, that is third-party tools, or you can move it into code deploy, that is again in-house CD pipeline or CI/CD pipeline, what you call a build and test one, or you can use any CI tool, any continuous integration tool. So there are three possibilities. Either you can move the code from code commit into Jenkins directly, or you can move the code commit or the committed code into your code build. That is again a CI tool, or third, any other CI tool in this entire world. So there is no dependency, but if the code is in AWS repository, please rest be assured that it would be highly available, it would be fault tolerant, and it would be fully managed. So you don't need to worry about underlying infrastructure, what is running in background for you. Clear? So Emma and John are developers. They are working on a piece of code on their local, and then they push the code. Now, when they push the code into this code repository, this repository is called as code commit. Clear?
Yes.
Now, interactions are done using Git. Now, which is a tool that would help you to move your code from your local into your AWS is Git commit. Authentications, as I told you, authentications can be done using SSH. It can be done using AWS users, can be used using SSH keys or IAM consoles. Second is it can use HTTP or HTTPS credentials. Third is authorization. IAM policies to manage roles, permissions, or repositories. So whenever you're moving a code, the cloud should also know, right, whether you are correct person or not. So there are two things that happen simultaneously. First is authentication. That means it tries to check who you are. That is authentication. Clear? And second one is authorization. That means it tries to check what all access you have. Let's go back. You work for a US civil services. when you work for a US civil services, those are, I would say, the number one, the strongest army in the world. All informations that US civil services has is pretty much confidential, correct? Now,
True.
when those informations are confidential, it cannot be, or it cannot come into a public domain. Now, when you log in into your office, you put username and password, correct?
Mhm.
So that username and password is what I call authentication. That means it is checking who you are. Clear? Even if it is a fingerprint scanner or an iris scanner, whatever you call, whatever you have in your office, I'm not sure. You have username, password, or fingerprint?
Mhm. You have username password.
Username and password, right? So it checks for the correct person. So username and password means authentication. Second, as I told you, since if you are a junior person in the civil services, you won't be given all access to entire data of US government, correct? So let's say out of 100 GB of data, if you're only given 1 GB access, that means you are authorized to work on only 1 GB of data. That means what? Authorization simply means up to what extent you have an access. Clear?
Mhm.
Is the word authentication and authorization clear to you?
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Authentication is to check who you are, and authorization is to verify the level of access you have.
Correct. Exactly. Bingo. Third is encryptions. All the repositories are automatically encrypted at rest using KMS. That means what? The data that is there inside the repository is encrypted at rest using AWS cryptographic keys, or what you call key management service. That is simply what we call KMS. Clear? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Next is encrypted in transit. As I told you, if the data is encrypted at rest, it is also encrypted in transit, can only use HTTPS or SSH or both securely. So the data can be moved in transit or at rest securely. Fine.
Yes.
Next is cross account access. Let's say if one account wants to access another. That is what we call cross account. You do not share your SSH keys or AWS credentials whenever you are trying to connect cross account. This is the first thing. Second, use IAM roles or STS for it. So STS are kind of a security tokens that are applicable only for a short period of time. Let's say uh, there's an auditor that comes up and he wants to gain access to your system for an audit. Will you give him full access? No. Will you create a user for him? No. What you're going to do, you're going to create simply a temporary token or a temporary user for a particular time frame for him till the time the audit is working. The moment the audit is completed, you would simply that token is going to expire. So STS is nothing but your token service that gives you temporary access based on your requirement. Clear? Or you can have a role based access. Now, what is a role-based access in cloud? It is not possible for all the people to create a user. So what we do is we create roles, and those roles are basically assume roles which are used or which someone assumes it. It can be a user or a non-human who assumes that role and then acts on behalf of it. Clear? It's simply like how an actor works. An actor is given a role. He comes to the set, comes into or assumes that role of that character, plays it. After the set or after there's a backup, he goes back to his home. Clear? That means what? He is trying to behave like that for a particular period of time. Now, whatever permissions that role has, if I assume that role, I would automatically gain those permissions. Clear? Whatever
Yes.
permissions I have, if I assume that role, I would automatically gain that permission and then I would be able to run it or play it. Fine. Now, difference code commit and GitHub. This would be something like a comparable difference because we use GitHub on day-to-day basis. What is the difference between a code commit and a GitHub? Let's understand it. The first is they both support pull requests. That means if I have a code in GitHub or if I have a code in code commit, I can simply pull that code into my local. Clear?
Yes.
The second is integration with code build. Both GitHub and code commit can integrate with code build service. That means from code commit, I can simply move the code into the build stage, or from GitHub, I can move the code directly to the code build as well. Third, they both support SSH and HTTPS. That means secure way of traveling or transitioning over the internet. HTTPS means that the data is traveling over the internet, and SSH simply means that it is going via secured shell or internally. Clear?
Yeah.
I have a habit of asking you, so just it's not with you, but it's with anyone, right? I would keep on asking so that you are getting it or not. That's why,
Okay, it's fine.
right? So if you get would be something like a comparable difference because we use GitHub on day-to-day basis. What is the difference between a code commit and a GitHub? Let's understand it. The first is they both support pull requests. That means if I have a code in GitHub or if I have a code in code commit, I can simply pull that code into my local. Clear?
Yes.
The second is integration with code build. Both GitHub and code commit can integrate with code build service. That means from code commit, I can simply move the code into the build stage, or from GitHub, I can move the code directly to the code build as well. Third, they both support SSH and HTTPS. That means secure way of traveling or transitioning over the internet. HTTPS means that the data is traveling over the internet, and SSH simply means that it is going via secured shell or internally. Clear?
Yeah.
I have a habit of asking you, so just it's not with you, but it's with anyone, right? I would keep on asking so that you are getting it or not. That's why,
Okay, it's fine.
right? So if you get bored of saying yes, 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 apologies well in advance.
It's okay.
Right. Okay. Uh, Next is hosting. You can have managed and hosted by AWS. That means this service, since it is internal to AWS and it is their product, it is completely managed and hosted by AWS. You don't have any control over it. Next is GitHub. It can be hosted by GitHub. It can be hosted by GitHub Enterprise. Can be hosted by self if you want to make that repository as private. And finally, UI for any minimal code one, you can use minimum UI, and for this one, it has fully featured UI available.
What does the UI mean?
User interface.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we all know that GitHub has a great user interface, and for code commit, you generally have a minimum user interface that is available for you. Now, there's one thing that is important. Why we have a exam in our schools or in our colleges or in our academics? It's for the simplest reason that we want our knowledge to be assessed. correct? Now,
Mhm.
why we have a teacher in our school? It's for the simplest reason that we want, or they simply want us or our performance to be assessed. That simply means that they continuously wants to check our progress, correct? Similarly, the moment you move your code or you create a pull request, what happens is there is something called as an event bridge. This is kind of a near real time. Near real time simply means that the moment I generate a pull request, within fractions of seconds, it would trigger either an SNS or a Lambda or a code pipeline. That means what? It is kind of a trigger which would have a resource associated with it that would do a dedicated job. Let's say if I create a pull request or pull request status change, reference created, whatever it be, then this event bridge either may send an email notification to me that someone is trying to pull a code, or it can invoke a Lambda function that has a logic written, or it can go to, or it can invoke your code pipeline, which will deploy your code into that environment. Let's take an example. Every Saturday morning, let's say at 9 o'clock, whatever code on which you have been working on needs to be deployed into production. You you have created your code somewhere over here. You have pushed the code into the code commit. So now this code is built and tested. Now this event trigger would be set up at Saturday 9 a.m. Okay, so the moment your clock hits Saturday 9 a.m., automatically the code commit will this would trigger, and this would pull the code request from your code commit and then would deploy the code using your code pipeline into production. Fine.
Yes.
So this is how the real life scenario is. Next is migrate Git repositories to the code commit. Now, if you have your traditional Git servers or Git repositories or any code that you're working on your local, okay, and if you want to move that code into your code commit, how you do that? You can migrate a project hosted on other Git repository that includes GitHub, GitLab to a code commit repository as well. So if this is a user, first he or she creates a code repository. Okay. First step is create a code repository. Second thing, what he's going to do is he is going to clone that Git server. Clear? Now that Git server would have the projects files that are there on their local, using which it is going to push it into your code commit repository. Clear?
Yes.
Let me move to the next one. Use case. Achieve lower latency, pulse or global developers, backups, etc. The same use case what I just showed it to you. A developer pushes the code into the code commit repository at any point of time, let's say 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m. That event bridge is going to invoke this. It would then be deployed into another code commit repository B if you want to clone it. So these are the practical standard use cases that we have based on our requirement and our request. So now this is another one, that is branching the security. By default, a user who has push permissions to a code commit repository can contribute to any other branch. So if this is a junior developer, if he has permissions, he can move the code to a development branch, to a staging branch, or to a production branch. Clear? If he has push permissions. Clear? So by default, a user who has push permissions to code commit repository can contribute to any branch. So if this junior developer has access to this code commit to any branch, he can move the code. Clear?
Mhm.
Now use IAM policies to restrict to push. Now, why I should have an IAM policy? It's for the simplest reason that I don't want my developer to directly push the code into staging or production. I want him to only push into a development branch. Clear? Now,
Yes.
I use an IAM policy for the same reason. Now, if you see over here, what this policy is doing is it is doing a denial. That means this policy is stopping something. What it is stopping? It is stopping for git push, delete branch, put file, merge, any kind of merge, right? On which resource? On demo repo. That is your branch, or that is your code commit repository. Demo repo is your code commit repository. Subjected to that it cannot move into the main thread, or it can move into, that means it can only move, or this developer can only push the code into a develop branch. And that is why we always have an IAM policy associated with it. Now, each senior developer can only push the code to the production. That means the moment this developer moves the code into this develop branch or to the staging branch, this developer or a senior developer would see to the code that is there in these two, then would completely push and merge all at one go. Clear?
Yes.
Now, I'm just coming in 2 minutes. Huh? Just give me 2 minutes. There's someone at the door.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, if you're overloaded, just let me know. I can take a break as well. Huh?
Okay.
Or let's have it at 10 o'clock. I think that would be my dinner time. It would be too much late. But anyways, where you based, Conscience?
Houston, Texas.
Houston. Okay. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
That's the only person, the most famous person, I guess, from Houston.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
everyone knows him, I guess.
It,
The, the
Beyonce is from Texas too.
sorry?
Beyonce, the singer, if you know her.
Ah, Beyonce, yes, correct. And the only thing that I like about Texas is the Cowboys.
Yeah, me too. And they have good food. The food is really
Exactly.
good.
Right, right. And those done and dusty places to be precise.
Yeah.
If I talk about it, so every state or every city has its own USP, but Houston is famous for the Cowboys, I guess.
Yeah, they are.
Those rug jeans and all, and those caps that they wear.
Yeah. Yeah, and the horses, they ride a lot of
Horses,
horses.
right, right. The horse ride a lot of horses. So let's move on. The next thing is pull request approval rules. Now, what are the rules that each pull request has to follow, or what we do generally? Helps ensure the quality of your code by requiring users to approve pull request. PR means pull request before the code can be merged. Now, how this works, let's see to it. Assume that there are 5 developers who are there, out of which I require minimum 2 approvals to move or to pull this code. Specify a pool of users to approve the number of users who must approve the pull request. Over here, I have given number of users as 2. That means minimum 2 users approval is needed to approve a pull request from this code commit. Clear? But when we would be doing on our own one-to-one basis, we would only make the minimum as 1 because I'm only one who would be moving or pushing the code into the repository. Second is I would always have an IAM principal that has an ARN, that is Amazon Resource Notation, that would have an IAM user, federated user, roles or groups, whatever it be, just to have an authenticated authentication and authorization done. So this was all about your pull request code pipeline. Now we have, or now we'll be moving to the pipeline itself. It's basically your visual workflow to orchestrate your CI/CD. It has your source that can be S3, that can be ECR, that can be code commit, Bitbucket, GitHub, etc. Build can be using code build, Jenkins, CloudBees, TeamCity. Most of the time it is either code build or Jenkins that people use. Test is it is again code build because build and test are done using the same. In case of other ones, you have AWS device farm third-party tools if you want to test it out. But most of the time, either it is done in real life using Jenkins or using code build. Deploy. Now you have something called as a code deploy or a beanstalk or a cloud formation or an ECS or an S3. And finally, the last is your Lambda invoke or your step functions would be doing it. So the steps are source, build, test, SBTD. Okay, source, build, test, and deploy. That means source means create a code first, then move it into a source repository. From there, build it, then test it, and finally deploy it. Clear?
Mhm.
Now, there are various stages. Each stage can be sequential in action or parallel. Generally, it is sequential because once and first step is completed, then only the second state would be invoked. However, if you are putting multiple codes, then they can be in parallel as well. So as I said, create, build, test, deploy. Create, just before here it is create, then source, then build, test, and deploy. You can also have manual approvals at each stages, but real life scenarios, it would be a group of approvals or on automated approvals once. So this is the terminologies that we have used. This is again, I guess, a repetitive slide because we know we had talked about code, build, deploy, Jenkins, Bitbucket, etc., etc. Now the next thing,
Oh my,
sorry,
I wanted to like, you said something about the ARN. You said it was Amazon resource. I didn't get the
notation,
last
notation,
notation.
notation.
Okay.
Correct. So how we have a URL, you have an ARN. Okay, similar to what we have a URL, that is a universal resource locator, you have an ARN, deploy, SBTD. Okay, source, build, test, and deploy. That means source means create a code first, then move it into a source repository. From there, build it, then test it, and finally deploy it. Clear?
Mhm.
Now, there are various stages. Each stage can be sequential in action or parallel. Generally, it is sequential because once and first step is completed, then only the second state would be invoked. However, if you're putting multiple codes, then they can be in parallel as well. So as I said, create, build, test, deploy. Create, just before here it is create, then source, then build, test, and deploy. You can also have manual approvals at each stages, but real life scenarios, it would be a group approvals or on automated approvals once. So this is the terminologies that we have used. This is again, I guess, a repetitive slide because we know we had talked about code, build, deploy, Jenkins, Bitbucket, etc., etc. Now the next thing,
Oh my,
sorry,
I wanted to like, you said something about the ARN. You said it was Amazon resource. I didn't get the
notation,
last
notation,
notation.
notation.
Okay.
Correct. So how we have a URL, you have an ARN. Okay, similar to what we have a URL, that is a universal resource locator, you have an ARN.
Okay.
Okay, so that ARN is unique for each resource. Okay, it gives you the name. I will tell you how that ARN looks like and what are the characteristics that an ARN is associated with. Give me some time. Once we come from break, I would definitely give you in detail. Now, what are the ways by which we can troubleshoot the pipeline? The first one is for code pipeline. Action stage, execution stage, change stage are the key stages at which we can check for any changes. Use CloudWatch events. As I've told you that if there's an event bridge or any other CloudWatch events, at any point of time, if your events fails out or your pipeline gets failed or get cancelled out, then what is going to happen is that it has, you would know that it has gone into vain. Clear?
Yeah.
If the code fails at a stage, your pipeline stops and then you can get information in the console. That means what? This code, this what you call monitoring would help you to check that at what point of time your code has failed and what actually made it to fail. Clear? At what time it had failed and what actually it made fail or it made to be failed. Hence, in simple words, it would give you all the details which are necessary to see to it that what was the root cause that was associated with it. Okay, what was the root cause that was associated with it? Clear?
Mhm.
Next is, if the pipeline cannot perform an action, make sure that the IAM services or roles attached does not have enough permission. So whenever anything is getting deprived or anything is stopping you, then what you need to do is you need to check the necessary roles or the permissions that are associated with it. Okay, you need to check the necessary roles that are associated with it. Now that role or those roles would actually help you to find it out at what place it is fading out. At what place it is fading out. Clear? And
Yeah.
finally, you always have a cloud trail to check for all audit related logs. Now, this is the same thing, the same example, code commit, you push it, or there is an event bridge that would have a trigger associated with it that would trigger your code pipeline and then would move into your deployment stage. Now, these are the types of actions or the constraints that we generally use. For owners, generally we use different AWS services like S3, code commit, ECR, GitHub to save or to store your code. Okay. For build stage, you generally use code build. For test also you use code build. Other than that, ignore third parties because we are concentrating on AWS as of now. So I'm ignoring third parties. For deployment, you can directly use S3, you can use CloudFormation, you can use code deploy, you can use Beanstalk, you can use OpsWork, you can use ECS, service catalogs. And for invocation, you can use Lambda, step functions, Alexa skill set, build again Jenkins, test Jenkins, and other tools. So it depends on you which tool you want to use. Most of the time, you would always use in-house products from Amazon. Clear? That is the generic thing that you would be using. Any doubts until now, consigns?
No.
How do you spell your name? Like, how do you pronounce your name? Is it consigns?
No.
Sorry, my bad. Then what is it?
It's okay. It's conscience.
Conscience.
Yes.
Okay, conscience. I will make sure that I will
It's
pronounce
like
it in the
it's like your conscience, your inner voice that
inner
speaks to you.
voice. Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Conscious, conscience. Okay,
Yeah.
conscience. Okay, so conscience. When you talk about manual approvals stage, what happens is at each stage you would be asked to manually approve it. Now there are, of course, the USPs of manual approvals as well. First thing is you can check at each stage whether the previous stage has completed or not. If you are having a manual approvals, the moment, let's say, assume that from code commit it comes to code build. Now, before the build is going to happen, if you are asked to approve it, then you are 100% sure that until code commit, it has passed. Am I right, conscience?
Yes.
Now, second thing, from build, if it goes to deploy and it is and it is asking me to approve it, now I know that until code build, everything is working fine. Correct. Now, if it fails after build and before deploy and after build, then I would only work on this bit. Am I correct, Conscious?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Now, the same thing is happening. The same thing won't happen if it is an auto approval. Now, when it is an auto approved, only at the last, I would know that whether it passed or failed. You're getting it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it has a disadvantage. Also, it has an advantage that it won't prompt me every time. But the biggest disadvantage is that I won't know until it is completely deployed whether it has passed all stages or not.
Oh, okay.
That is the reason I keep on asking you, have you got it? Have you got it or not? Because after the end of this day's session, if I ask you that conscience, have you got it? Either would say you would say yes or no. So all my 8 or whatever you call all my 7, 6, 8 hours have gone into vain. Am I correct? But
Mm-hmm.
if I keep on asking you within intervals, so I will know that until this topic, conscience has got it. Now, when I ask or when I deliver the next topic and conscience says she doesn't get that, then during or only that topic I need to explain. Am I correct?
Yes.
That is why it is always recommended at some point of time, you should have a manual approval as well. Maybe through an email that can be done or through a user. So whenever it is asked for a manual approval, what you can do is you can set up an IAM user permission that says allow code pipeline get link on this code pipeline, allow and with my approval action. So if this manual approval is asked, this would trigger an SNS or an email that would be sent to my email inbox, and I would have an option to approve or decline,
Then,
right? Or reject in short. If I do approve, it would move forward into a deploy stage. If I reject it, it would come out. Yeah.
yes.
Cloud formation um, and other related stuffs. Cloud formation deploy action can be used to deploy AWS resources. It can deploy Lambda functions using SDK, SAM, or what you call anything that is your uh, manager or resource manager. It can work with CloudFormation stacks to deploy your multiple across AWS resources, configure different settings, stack names, stack changes, etc., etc. So the same thing is happening. What is there is you create your code, you move it into a code commit, then from there you create a template using CloudFormation. That is what we call a stack. If you want to deploy it, then you ask for a manual approval, and whatever changes are there, then that goes into the target state. This is again a live example of your CloudFormation integration. You create underscore update is nothing but your create or update the existing stack. Delete only means it deletes your stack if it exists. So what is happening is the same pipeline what was shown over here in the vertical node now has been moved into a horizontal format. Okay, now and one more key or one more icon with the name of delete test infra has been created. So what it does is it's build your application, then using CloudFormation it deploys that into your build application test environment. From there, if you want to move into production, that test infrastructure would only be deleted if it exists, and the production code would be deployed into prod. Fine.
I don't really understand that part yet.
Okay. So what happens is assume that you have a stack which you want to deploy it into a production. Now, when you want to deploy a stack into a production, uh, you create a test stack. If that test stack is completely uh, working fine, then you would delete that test stack and would move only the production ready stack into production environment.
Okay. So CloudFormation is used to test um um the application while it goes through the build, test, and the production. Is
No,
that
no, no,
why it's
no, no,
created?
no, no. It is just a use case that I'm showcasing right now. What is happening is cloud formation is used to create your infrastructure. Okay, so let's say if you have a entire cloud infrastructure that contains your load balancer, your EC2s, your web server, your database servers, and all other stuffs related to it. Yeah, now you cannot create all the infrastructure at one go in production directly. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to do is you're first going to create a stack and then test it on your lower environments. Fine. So the lower environment over here is your test environment. Clear? Where you are going to check whether the stack is working fine or not. Correct? Now, if the stack is completely working fine, then you won't move the sample or the demo stack which you have deployed on non-production environment to move it into production. Correct? So
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to do is you're going to delete the test stack and only move the production ready stack into prod.
Okay.
Okay, this is just a use case. Okay, this is not the realistic one. Based on the slides what I have, I'm explaining to you what can be a tentative option. There are hundreds of options that are available.
Okay.
Conscience. What? Sorry, I forgot your name.
No, it's okay.
Can you spell it once again or pronounce it?
Conscience, you got it right.
Conscience, right? Okay, I got it right. I thought I made a mistake. Now, action modes. As I told you, you have different actions using a cloud formation. The first one is you can create or replace your stack. Everyone knows why I create a stack or why I use a replace. Replace means what? Existing stack would be replaced. Am I right? But if you create a stack, it would be created from fresh or from a fresh set. Clear? So you have two options, create or replace. A change stack, execute a change set. Next is create or update. A stack, delete a stack, replace a stack. These are common terminologies that we use for a cloud formation. I will tell you in detail after coming from a break how a cloud formation template works. Okay, because that actually would give you an understanding of what are the parameters that are associated with a cloud formation and what are the things that we actually take into a consideration whenever we get a cloud formation template. Okay, now all the things that you're seeing on your left, right, on your right, sorry, the parameter, the function, the artifact, the config, I will tell you in detail after coming from break that what are these and where they are widely used. Now, template parameter overrides. Specific JSON, generally most of the templates that we use in Stack or in cloud formations are either written in JSON or they are written in YAML. YAML means yet another markup language or JSON. But most of the time people only use JSON because it is one of the most widely used. It is one of the most widely used language in cloud computing. So JSON is the most common language that people use. So we would stick to JSON only to
Okay.
be precise. Uh, Code, what are the best practices that are associated with it? The best practices simply means I've said you that whenever you're uh, moving a code from code commit into a build stage, always have two builds, maybe a test and a production ready one, always. So parallel actions using your run order would be taken up. Also, you should always have a pre-prod environment whenever you're deploying so that directly moving into production is not an advisable option. You should move it into a test environment, and that is what we call a pre-prod environment as of now. Once pre-prod is working up and running, then you should have a manual approval to deploy it into a production. That should always be the case. Okay, you should not, it should not be that you should directly deploy your code directly into production. No one does it, I guess. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
the same one that is happening over here as well. Event bridge detects and reacts to the changes in an execution stage. So in case of any interruption, what is going to happen is, let's say if this failed out, the moment anything fails out, automatically an event bridge trigger would be activated. That would trigger an SNS notification and that would shoot out an email notification to me that the build has failed. Also, it would also have an lambda associated with it that would generate the logs and would investigate into it that what was the root cause that is associated with it. These are real-time examples that I am showing it to you just for the simplest reason that all these use cases are approved and proven use case. Many people in IT ecosystems are using it every now and then as well. Fine. Okay. I think let's go for a break. Would that be fine if I go for a 45 minutes break?
It is
Right.
already.
Or you want to go for a 1 hour? What's your call? 45 is fine.
45 is fine.
Okay. So what's the time in your local?
It's 10:28. Almost
So
10:30.
going for a breakfast, I guess.
Okay.
I would be completely having a lunch time or a dinner to be precise. Not a lunch, dinner time as per my clock
Oh,
because it is 10 o'clock.
wow, that's crazy. You
So
where are you located?
I am staying in New Delhi, capital of India.
Oh, near Delhi. Okay.
Conscience, as you're back from the break.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. I hope you had a great breakfast or morning lunch, whatever you call.
Yeah, I did.
For me, it was a kind of a dinner, a late dinner to be precise, but can't help it out. It's
Okay.
part of the story. So let's start the next phase or next chapter. Uh, 1 second, my screen got freezed. Just a minute. where it is. Just a minute.
Okay.
So the next one, what we are going to talk on is where we left was this one. Lambdas. We all know that Lambda plays an important role whenever we want to do any kind of a serverless computing, or whenever we want to see to it whether the correct code is being taken or not. So this happens in the same way that why Lambdas are introduced into a pipeline. If we are deploying something, and if due to any reason if the pipeline fails out, or what you call that if the pipeline is invoking something other than the Lambda, then what you can do is that pipeline would invoke a Lambda function, and that would again call a REST API that would do the all subsequent jobs that are associated with it. Also, you can have a step functions in between as well, but these are complex use cases. So I won't go into step function in detail because that is altogether a different topic that is associated. Now, what if I want to have a code pipeline in multiple? Just a minute.
Okay.
So the next one, what we are going to talk on is where we left was this one. Lambdas. We all know that Lambda plays an important role whenever we want to do any kind of a serverless computing, or whenever we want to see to it whether the correct code is being taken or not. So this happens in the same way that why Lambdas are introduced into a pipeline. If we are deploying something, and if due to any reason if the pipeline fails out, or what you call that if the pipeline is invoking something other than the Lambda, then what you can do is that pipeline would invoke a Lambda function, and that would again call a REST API that would do the all subsequent jobs that are associated with it. Also, you can have a step functions in between as well, but these are complex use cases. So I won't go into step function in detail because that is altogether a different topic that is associated. Now, what if I want to have a code pipeline in multiple regions? The first and the foremost thing is whenever you want to have a code pipeline in multiple regions, the first is your action in your pipeline can be in different regions as well. Assume that you deploy a Lambda functions through a code cloud formation in multiple regions. Now, in all cases, if you're deploying your Lambdas in multiple regions, then what is going to happen is you need to store your S3 artifacts in each region where you want to deploy. Assume that if you are deploying it in North Virginia, then your artifact should be North Virginia in one of the S3 bucket. In second, if you are deploying it in Ohio, then your artifact should be in Ohio S3 bucket. If you're deploying it in London, then your artifact should be in London S3 bucket, and so on. That simply means that wherever is your code residing, your necessary artifact should always be in that S3 bucket only. Okay, your necessary S3 artifact should be in that bucket only. This is the most important thing for for anything to deploy on cloud, when subjected to that it is in the same region as compare as in S3. Why? Because S3 is a global service, but that service is always available at a particular region. Although S3 or the contents of S3 can be accessed globally, but S3 has to be physically present somewhere in the globe. That is why we always say that whenever you are using S3 bucket, it is always recommended that your exact S3 bucket location of your code should be in the same S3 bucket or in the same region where your S3 bucket resides. Clear?
Yeah.
Next, if you use console, default artifact buckets are configured, else you must create them. That means if you're using AWS console, then by default, wherever you are creating your artifact, by default, this in the same region, an S3 bucket would be created. But if you are using a command line or an SDK, sorry, if you're using a command line or an SDK, then you need to explicitly create on your own. Now, code pipeline handles the copying of input artifacts from one AWS regions to another when performing a cross-region action. Now, assume that if one S3 bucket is in North Virginia, another is in Ohio, then in both the cases, the copying of the input artifacts from one region to another should be performed using cross-region actions. That means from one region to another, it should move. Now, this is a high-level design for a multi-region code pipeline deployment. What is happening is you have a code pipeline that copies your input artifacts from an S3 bucket. From there, what you do is you put that into your code commit. Clear? Now, from your code commit, what is going to happen is there are two regions. First is US West 1, sorry, EU West 1, and next is your US East. So one, you have something closer to a London region, and next is your Ohio region, because US East 2 is Ohio. Now, in both the cases, what is happening is the code pipeline generally copies the input artifacts into your S3 bucket. So one bucket is lying in US West, another bucket is lying in US East. Over here, whatever code is built after code commit, that build, that means your build spec, your .yaml file goes into this artifact, and the second build spec.yaml file goes into your second S3 bucket. Clear? Clear? From first pipeline code commit build, whatever artifacts are generated, one and sorry, first and second are there, and from here it goes into the second one. If you want to deploy using your first S3 bucket, then using CloudFormation, you would deploy it in North no, US East 1, and then you would trigger a Lambda. However, if you want to deploy it from second, then you use your CloudFormation and then deploy using another Lambda functions. Clear?
Little bit.
Okay, so what I'm doing is, Conscience, that I have two S3 buckets. Okay, what I'm doing is I am moving a code and building that, storing it into one S3 bucket. From one S3 bucket, I'm taking the second build spec.yaml file and copying it into a second S3 bucket in a different region.
Okay.
Okay, now I want to create a cloud formation. That means I want to create an environment in US West 1. So I am using this file to deploy. And if I want to create the infrastructure in US East 2, then I'm using the second file to deploy.
Okay.
This is what it is saying. As I told you, code build is fully managed CI service. I'm reiterating, it is a fully managed CI service. It continuously scales up with no servers to manage. So you completely take care of the ownership. That means AWS would completely take care of the underlying infrastructure. Whatever servers are needed at whatever point of time, it would take care of it. You would compile your source code, run the test cases, produce the software packages on your using that service, or what you call code build. There is charge per minute for a compute resource. So if you're using an EC2 or any virtual machine, you would be charged per minute. That means it take times to build the complete build. It can be used with the help of Dockers, Kubernetes, and other services as well. The next, all your code would always be into an S3 bucket, Bitbucket, or a GitHub, any tool that you want. For your build instructions, you always have a file that is called buildspec.yaml. That would have all the necessary instructions that are stored in it. For output logs, you would always use S3 or CloudWatch. For matrices, you would use CloudWatch matrices to monitor your services. For event triggers, you would always use event bridges. And for CloudWatch alarms, you would always have a threshold. In case if it is breached, then you can generate it. What types of environments are supported for code build? Code build supports almost all kinds of environment that includes Java, Ruby, Python, Go, Node.js, Android, .NET, PHP, Docker, that can be extended to any other environment of your own. How a code build works? I've said it multiple times. You just create your code, that is your source code, that along with a build spec.yaml file. Now this file actually gives you all the instructions what are necessary for it. Either you can containerize it using a Docker, sorry, or if you simply want to move it, then you can put it into your code build. Okay, or you can simply put it into your code build. That means from code commit, you are now moving it into your code build. Now, when you go for a code build, what you're doing is you are running that build with all the instructions which are given in this build spec.yaml. I'm reiterating what is this file. If you ever see any build spec.yaml file, it contains all the necessary instructions which are needed for your application to run. Okay, it contains all the instructions which are needed for all your applications to run. Clear? Let me just show you one of the build spec.yaml file. Here it is. Now see, if you carefully see this build spec.yaml, can you see it on my screen?
Yes, I do.
Now, this build spec.yaml has all the necessary instructions that are needed. So what it is doing is it is trying to install version 0.2 that would install Node.js, that would have a command that says echo installing the prerequisites, that would have a pre-build that would again say print environment, that is your current environment. All it is copying the files, it is running the test cases, configuring the index.html, post build spec, and finally you would have the necessary output associated with it. So this is what your build spec.yaml file actually contains. It contains all the necessary instructions that are needed. So if I'm a layman person and who simply wants to go and see this file, you can go and see to it. This simple file used to test the limited access for a privilege for demo. Adding a new line, etc., etc., is something that is being shown over here. Other than this, let me just show you. So this is one an artifact. So whenever an artifact is generated, it would go into an S3 bucket. Okay, whenever an artifact is generated, it would go inside an S3 bucket. Now, what you can do is there is an option to cache your S3 bucket or the contents of an S3 bucket as well. So what you can do, either you can retrieve those contents on the fly or you can keep it as well. Also, what is the output of your build spec? You can keep it into an S3 bucket along with your all your necessary CloudWatch logs. You can keep it into an S3 bucket along with all your S3 related CloudWatch logs. Have you ever worked on any live DevOps tools?
No, really.
Not really.
Just
Okay.
practice. Just practice.
Mm, Practice. Okay. So maybe on a very high level, you know it, how things
Yeah.
work. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So I just showed you an example of a build spec.yaml file just a couple of minutes before. The same thing over here. Build spec.yaml file must be at a root of your code. That means if you see my code, if this is my code that I have created and I have this repository, what I'm doing is at the root of my code, I have this build spec.yaml file available always. First and foremost thing, that is the mandatory. It cannot be inside or it cannot be hidden inside multiple subfolders into it. Okay, it has to be inside a root folder. I'm reiterating, it has to be inside a root folder only. It cannot be inside a subfolder. That means it cannot be inside cascading of the folders or folder within a folder. It has to be at the root level. First and the foremost thing. Second is you always define an env, that is what you call an environment. If you open or if I open my build spec.yaml file, you would see to it that it always has something called as an env or what you call as an environment. Now, what does this env contains is environment defines your all your environment variables that are globally accessible. Okay, that are globally accessible. So you have a variable that has plain text variable, you have parameter stores, variables stored in SSM parameter stores, then you have secrets manager to store your secret value. Okay, so there are three variables which we are using. One variable that would contain plain text values, second parameter store that would have your SSM values, and the third one is nothing but your secret manager that stores your secret. Clear? So variable that you see over here, clear? And it has Java variable, parameter store, and login password. Fine. Now, next is your face. This is your second one. That is what you call a face. If you see over here, this is a face. I have not given env because I am not using it over here. I'm not using an environment variable. I'm simply using it in generic way. Now, when you see a face, it has something called as a specific command to run. What all specific commands you want to run is written in face. Okay, what all specific commands you want to run is written in face. Now, what I want to do is I want to install. What I want to install all the dependencies which are needed for that build. Okay, so what I'm installing over here is I'm installing the phase that says get update, install all the updates related to Maven. If you see over here, I'm installing all the updates related to Maven. Clear?
Yeah.
Now, next is your pre-build. Pre-build is nothing but your final command to execute before the build. I'm reiterating, pre-build is nothing but the final command to execute before your final build. Okay. Now it says simple that docker login hyphen user and the login password. That is nothing but your pre-built command to be executed before your final build. That is your final command which is executed before your final build. Okay, that means you're logging into Docker using your existing user name. You're logging into Docker using your existing user name. Got it? You're logging into Docker using your existing user name.
Name.
Next is build. What does build do? It is nothing but your actual build that is going to happen. It is your actual build which is going to happen. What that is what we call build. Okay, so if you see over here, what you're doing, you have started building and you're installing Maven. That means you're actually starting your build phase. Clear? Post build, that means what is the output of it. It generally goes for finishing touches, whatever are associated with it. Finally, once the build is completed, you would have an artifact generated. That artifact would be stored into a specific location that is uploaded into an S3 as per this diagram. Okay, that would be stored into an S3 as per this diagram. Clear?
Mm.
And finally, if you want to cache any files, you can do that, and you can store that cache into a specific folder as and when you want to need it or retrieve it. So this is a small build spec.yaml file. I'm reiterating. First, it has an environment variables. What are the environment variables you want? Currently, you are using three variables: parameter store and secrets manager. It can be that you only use one, or it can be that you use all the three. It's up to you. Second, you use phase where you have install phase. That means you're installing all the dependencies. Then you have a pre-build phase. That means you are going for a final command before you actually start your building. Third is your build phase, which was simply called as your actual build. Fourth is your post build that would generate the output using your touch commands. Clear?
Yeah.
Finally, the artifacts are generated. Those artifacts would go into the necessary or desired S3 bucket location. That location is completely decided by you where you want to store it, and also the cache files if you want to store it locally. Now, most of the time, these build spec.yaml is provided by the developer itself. It is not provided by you. Okay, because if you are a DevOps person, then you are least bothered about what are the dependencies. You only go one by one and install as per all the instructions that are given in build spec. Okay, I am talking on behalf of a developer friendly tool. Okay, I assume that you are a DevOps guy, so I am saying in that favor. If I or if you are a developer, then you need to make sure that all these build specs.yaml and all these files you need to create it, you need to have it on your own, and then you need to supply it to the developers, whosoever is working in your team. Fine.
Yes.
Now, in all the cases, if you want to build the code, if you want to use it, if you want to further deep dive, you can refer to the this page and conference. This details that is docs.amazon.com, and you can deep dive into further details related to the local build. Now, what if you want to build inside a virtual server? This can also be done. Assume that you have a containerized based application and you want to build inside a virtual server. By default, a code build containers are launched outside of VPC. So whenever you have a code build container, that would always be launched outside your virtual private cloud. It cannot access a resource in a VPC. This is for the simplest reason that your resources cannot be accessed within your VPC. So you can specify a VPC configuration that includes your VPC ID, your subnets, your security groups. You can build and access a resource using a VPC, and you can integrate the test cases as well. So what you need to do is, if you are running inside your private subnet, let's say you are trying to deploy anything on your RDS, assume that, then you need to explicitly mention what is the VPC ID, what is a subnet, and what is a security group to this part so that it can recognize it and then finally build it. Clear? Now, let's have the detailed one for a build one. I told you that there is something called as an environment variables. Now, what are these environment variables? By default, your environment variables would define and would always be provided by AWS. By default, they would always be provided by AWS, like your default region, your code build ARN, your code. Further deep dive, you can refer to the this page and conference. This details that is docs.amazon.com, and you can deep dive into further details related to the local build. Now, what if you want to build inside a virtual server? This can also be done. Assume that you have a containerized based application and you want to build inside a virtual server. By default, a code build containers are launched outside of VPC. So whenever you have a code build container, that would always be launched outside your virtual private cloud. It cannot access a resource in a VPC. This is for the simplest reason that your resources cannot be accessed within your VPC. So you can specify a VPC configuration that includes your VPC ID, your subnets, your security groups. You can build and access a resource using a VPC, and you can integrate the test cases as well. So what you need to do is, if you are running inside your private subnet, let's say you are trying to deploy anything on your RDS, assume that, then you need to explicitly mention what is the VPC ID, what is a subnet, and what is a security group to this part so that it can recognize it and then finally build it. Clear? Now, let's have the detailed one for a build one. I told you that there is something called as an environment variables. Now, what are these environment variables? By default, your environment variables would define and would always be provided by AWS. By default, they would always be provided by AWS, like your default region, your code build ARN, your code build ID, and your code build image. This would be provided by default. However, if you want to go with custom environments, then you always have an option to go with either static or with dynamic. If you want to go with custom environments, you can either go with static or with dynamic. Now, static simply means that they would be defined at the time of the build. In case, that means at each time, if you are doing first build, your static environments would be defined. When you're doing the second build, then your first environments would be overwritten. Okay, because they are generally deployed, or they generally come into an existence at the time of build. When you talk about dynamic, these are nothing but your SSM parameters that are stored in your secrets manager. So secret manager is nothing but a wallet that stores your secret. So if those variables are stored in a secret, then it won't change forever. Whatever is the value that is stored in the secrets manager, it would be taken up on the fly, right? So if you store x equal to 1 and y equal to 2 in secrets manager, even if you do 100 times build, then every time the value of x would always be 1 and y would always be 2, because it is there secretly stored in your secrets manager. But in case of a static one, it would always be that if x is equal to 1, next time you do a build, now the x would be maybe 2, maybe 3, or whatever is the value that is coming up. Clear? So that is how your environment variables are. Please make sure that your static or your default values are nothing but your region related or your anything value that is there. Static values would always be there, and finally your dynamic values. Clear? Conscience?
Mm,
Conscience?
yeah. So, yeah, a little.
If you don't get it, let me know. I can explain it to you once again.
Okay, the static, the previous slide is
Okay.
just,
Hmm.
yeah.
Now, what happens to a static value? Generally, what happens is when you talk about a static value, these values gets overridden by a start of the build using an API call. Assume that if I have a static value as A, next time when I run a build, that value would be overridden. And next time if it comes as B, it would be overridden with B. Whereas if the value is dynamic, whatever value is stored in secrets manager or in parameter store, it would be taken up that way. If I take value of this value of x equal to 1 and y equal to 2, and I store in the secrets manager, even if I run the build for next 1000 time, whatever is the value of x, that is 1, would come up, and whatever is the value of y, that would again come up. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when to use what? All your dynamic values generally contains username and password, because whenever you are running a build and if you want to authenticate it, generally your username and password doesn't change, right, during that build phase. So we store secret values over there. Also, your environment values are, since they come up by default, so there's no need to store it in secrets. However, if you want to store it in secrets at any point of time, you can also do that. Is this fine now?
Yeah.
Now, next thing is whenever what are your code services that would allow you to access your resources on behalf of your AWS. I've told many times that whenever you have anything called as a service role helps you to access a service on behalf of a service. So if you have a service role for code build, that role would allow you to fetch any or get data from any of the AWS services. Maybe you can get the data from your parameter stores, you can get the artifacts from an S3, or you can download the code from the code commit itself. Clear? That simply means that it would help you to take care of a service on behalf of a service. So it is nothing but a service to a service call using a specific service role. Now, the data is secured both at transit as well as rest using encryptions. And I've said it before also that whenever you are using encryptions, it helps, it is generally done with the help of something called as KMS, or your key management service. Now, each time whenever you run your code build, it dynamically generates a badge. This is how a badge is generated that displays the status of your latest build. Okay, that displays the status of your latest build. That can be accessed using a public URL for a code build project. Okay, that can be accessed for a public URL using a code build. It can support code commit, GitHub, and Bitbucket. Also, it can use any badges that are also available at a branch level. So I can have like a badge for dev, badge for test branch, badge for pre-production, badge for production, etc., etc. It's up to me that at what level I want to have a badge associated with it. Now, um, this is interesting. How to validate a code request. Let me just um, now see, this is your console. You first create a repository of your own, and you see artifact, build, deploy, pipeline, everything is over here. So first thing is you need to create a repository of your own. So you write a repository name. I'm just writing awesome as my repository name. You can write SE demo Sprintzeal demo repository. Do you want to enable Cloud Guru or any of this third party things? I say no, I don't want it as of now. So the first step is create a repository. Now, once your repository is created, what you can do is you can add a file into that repository. Either you can create it from here or you can add it from a place. Maybe you can upload it from here, like you can write your names or something, or you can choose it, or you can download it from or upload it from your local. So not download, upload it from your local itself. If you want to put a file, you can directly do it from here as well. If you go to this place, you can go over here and you can go to the trainings, then DevOps, then you can go to this AWS repo, and maybe you can simply upload a sample file. Okay, now a sample file has been uploaded. You can write a name, an author, so you can write awesome, and email address. Who has uploaded it? Commit changes. Clear? Now see to it how the magic happens. What I did was I created a repository first. Hello? Conscience, you are you getting it? Conscious? Hello?
Oh, sorry, I'm here. My mic was on mute.
Okay, no problem. So let's see it one by one. If you carefully see that I've just written a small file that says this is a sample file used to test the limited access privileges for a policy for demo one, adding a new line, adding this file features, verifying a branch access, etc., etc. Just a normal thing. Now, what I did was I created a repository, then I uploaded a file. Now I simply edit it. Making changes to this file. Okay. Again, you can write the name of an author. Again, my right name only. Awesome. Again, my email address. Okay. And finally, commit the changes. So your changes are committed. Clear? Making the changes. Now you have an option to create a pull request. Firstly, whenever I'm trying to create a pull request, I need to authenticate it with my local. I need to authenticate it with my local. So I need to open Git first. I don't know what is happening to my Git bash. Git over here means GitHub, Git bash. I'm not referring to GitHub. Now
Yeah.
you need to type AWS configure. You need
Where
to
should
type. I'm just typing in. Just a minute. Let the prompt open, please. Just a minute. Right. So AWS space configure or config, either way. Just give me a minute.
mm-hmm.
I don't know why this is not responding. Is there any issue with this? Just give me a minute. I think today morning also I was facing some issue with Git. Not sure why. Seems there's an update that is there or something like that.
Okay.
Give me 2 minutes, huh?
Okay. Obi. Hello? 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 Hello?
I got dropped off.
Ah, you're back. I was trying to. I think I shoot you an email, Seth. I was like, what happened? You went out.
No problem, no problem. Like if at any point of time if I get dropped off,
Mhm.
just wait for a couple of minutes because I would join in. Maybe some due to network issues. I don't know what happened in the background, but I got dropped off.
Okay.
Right. Whenever it happens, in case, just make sure that you be there. I would surely join. I hope
Okay.
you're able to see my screen. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see your
Right.
screen.
Right. So the first thing that we are doing is we're executing one command that says AWS space configure. It asks me for an access key. In my local, I already have one access key that I have stored. The same access key that ends with UM4J. Okay. So I copy that access key. I paste it over there, UM4J, and I paste it. Clear? Then I press enter. It asks me for a secret key. It ends with 6VGK. Again, it asks me for this. Copy this 6VGK, copy from here and paste it. It asks me for a default region. If you want, you can write US East -1, enter. Default format, press enter. Once you're done with it, you are authenticated. Okay, that means now you can use AWS S3 list to see all the list of S3 buckets that you are using in your cloud account. Now what I did simply is I integrated my AWS. I integrated my AWS with uh, my local. Okay, so even if I type AWS S3 list or AWS S3 ls, that would give me list of all the commands. Now if you get something like this that says error when trying to access list bucket, what you need to do is you need to go to your identity and access management, or what you call an IAM console. Let me open this for you and try to give full access to this user, because this user is not having all the privileges to uh, access your application. I think what happened to this now. I am all these things you would face it on day-to-day basis in your real life. So make sure that whatever errors which I'm showing it to you, you please pay attention to it. And at any point of time, if you face something related to access denied, please check your necessary permissions on your roles. Please check your necessary permissions on your roles. So I need to check which user I'm using on as of now. I think I was using app user. I'm not sure. Let me just check. Now go to the security credentials. Go to the security credentials. It is ending. No, it is ending with double MF6. No, that is not the correct one. My username was what? I don't know this one. It is ending with UM4J, correct? So let's go and see any user by the name of UM4J. Is it this one? Awesome. Let's see. Login failed. I need to relog in to AWS. It has been idle since so long. So do you have a free tier account, or how do you test it? How do you would be practicing it? Have you got a free tier account with you? Hello? You're on mute if you're speaking. Conscience? Conscience, if you're speaking, you're on mute. This is the one, UM4J. So we need to go to the permissions of this user and see what it has. It has S3 full access, S3 RDS, S3 full access. Other than this, let me delete this custom policy as of now. Maybe it is blocking it. Maybe we need to check what is the policy that is blocking this user from accessing the contents of S3. some S3 bucket level permission issues or something like that. Need to check it out. Lambda functions, IAM role privileges. Need to check the permission boundaries. Remove permission boundary from this bucket. See, there was some permission error that was stopping this one. Hence, there we were getting this access denied. Now, if you carefully see, what I did was I integrated my AWS console with this S3 bucket. Clear? Now, if I execute S3CPLS, then I was able to see all the S3 buckets that are there inside my AWS account. Now, let me show it to you as well. If you open another management tab, and if I open S3 bucket from here, let me just go here. Where is S3? Here it is. Now, if you see inside my S3 bucket, there are 4 buckets over here. There are 4 buckets inside my S3, and the same buckets would be shown by these 4 names. Awesome, awesome destination, awesome source, and Om Sharma. If you see, can you see it?
Yeah,
Now,
I
if
see.
I want to copy a file from my local, all I want to do is AWS S3 copy, that is CP command, all in small, sorry, and then put the destination or the source file name and put the destination file name. I can copy it from my local to S3 as well. So this is the first step for integration. Clear? This is the
Mhm.
first step for integration. Now, the next thing is, if you have this DevOps folder as of now, let's say if I open this one and I right click over here and just simply do git bash here. Okay. Now, if I want to move a file from here into, let's say, if I just write AWS S3CP, put the file name sample-file and put the location. Now, what is the location? The location, if you want to find the location of a file, let's see that I want to move a file into this bucket. So go to this bucket, go to the permissions, or simply to your management, whatever you want, wherever you would like to go. If you go here, you would have something, the path of the S3 bucket. Why it is showing an unknown error? I'm not getting it. This one. I don't know why this weird error is coming up. Is my session got timed out or what? That is what I'm not getting it. Let me open another bucket. Let me open Om Sharma for the simplest reason. There is a timeout on the AWS console. Unexpected error. Let me re-log in. It is now allowing to log in. Then if you just put then S3 colon, sorry, double slash and the file name, whatever it is, the destination if you see. Mm, just a minute till the time this is loading up. And put your bucket name. Let's say put Sharma. Okay, let me put this way. It says the user provided path doesn't exist. That is because the file name is not written. So let me just write sample hyphen file dot text. It is a text file, right? So the path was not mentioned correctly. See, I now uploaded a file from my local into this S3 bucket. I don't know why this is error is coming. Let me just sign out from this console for a minute. This is behaving. This is mischievous behaving. I think just sign into the console. Now, if you open this bucket, which we have recently created, and you would see the file that is inside it. This code comment. You would see a sample.txt. Can you see it right now?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah, I
that
can
is
see it.
how, right, that is how you actually move your codes from your local into an S3 bucket like this. Is the first demo clear to you?
There was so many parts I didn't get, but maybe I'll go
Okay.
through the
Let
material and
me
read it again.
let me reiterate from start. That would be better, I guess. Fine. Let me recap to
Yes.
you. Fine.
Okay.
So the first, let me just do clear. The first thing is, because we got disconnected as well. So the first thing is you just put AWS configure. That is your first command that you put. Right. Now the
That's
moment you
when
put
you open your local command
correct,
line, right?
right.
Okay.
Now there would be a user. You copy this username, whatever is your username, you paste it. Then it asks you for the password. Copy the password, whatever you have over here. Copy the password, whatever you have, paste it. Then you put your region, whatever is your default region, US East 1, enter. Default format, leave blank, press enter. Now you're authenticated. Okay. If you just want to see whether you are authenticated or not, you can just write AWS S3 LS to list all the buckets that you have. Clear?
Okay.
So the moment you execute this command, you would see that I have now, I'm able to access all 4 S3 buckets. Right. That means I'm able to connect my local with my AWS console. Clear? Using a CLI. Now, if I want to copy the files from a source into a destination, then what you need to do is you need to execute this command.
I was
AW,
gonna ask, where did you get the AWS access key ID and the secret key ID from?
okay, I will tell you, just a minute. Now, the moment you enter this command, okay, if you are already on a root directory, then you need to go to that path. Or if you're already over here, then you need to go like this. Let me tell you once again. I will tell you, that's a good question, I guess, how you get a access key and secret key. So what is the first step? What is the first step?
AWS, yeah, the AWS
Configure, configure, not
configure.
config,
Okay.
right? Configure. Put AWS configure. The moment you put AWS configure, it would ask you for an access key,
Mm-hmm.
or this is your access key. You get it. Put it. See, UM4J at the last, UM4J at the last. That means it is correct. Similarly, 6VGK, last four digits only would be mentioned just for reconciliation that you are putting the correct way. Or put it like this, paste. US East 1, default output, leave it. AWS S3 LS to see whether you're
Nice.
able to see the list of the files or commands or not. If you are already on a root directory, then you need to go to that path. Or if you're already over here, then you need to go like this. Let me tell you once again. I will tell you, that's a good question, I guess, how you get a access key and secret key. So what is the first step? What is the first step?
AWS, yeah, the AWS
Configure, configure, not
configure.
config,
Okay.
right? Configure. Put AWS configure. The moment you put AWS configure, it would ask you for an access key,
Mm-hmm.
or this is your access key. You get it. Put it. See, UM4J at the last, UM4J at the last. That means it is correct. Similarly, 6VGK, last four digits only would be mentioned just for reconciliation that you are putting the correct way. Or put it like this, paste. US East 1, default output, leave it. AWS S3 LS to see whether you're
Nice.
able to see the list of the files or commands or not. Now you simply put this AWS S3CP sample file text to this, and you just write sample file new. Okay, enter. If everything is working fine, you would be able to copy it from here into your local. Uploaded a file. Now your next question, that was a good question as well, that from where did you got uh, this access key and secret key? Now
Mm-hmm.
this access key and secret key is created by an IAM user. Okay, so what we did was we created one IAM user that had the correct access and the secret key associated with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Mm-hmm.
created a user that had full permissions. I'm reiterating, I created a user that had super permissions or full access. That means it was not blocking me at any point of time. If it was blocking me at any point of time, then I would be getting access denied what I was getting at the start. Okay,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
is it fine?
Yes.
I'm just writing this way. So I've just, whenever you watch your recordings, you can just pause it. So what I did was, if you carefully see, I created one IAM user at the start. I already had one user. Now you need to go to an IAM user page. You need to go to an IAM user page. Over here, you need to click on create a user. Click on create a user. Okay, write the nice username. Maybe you can write conscious your name over there. And uh, I'm getting this access denied. Not sure why I'm getting this today. I created this user. Okay, awesome. And that user has a security credential by the name UM4J. If you can see, I don't know why this is not working today. Clear UM4J. Now, how did you create the keys? Click on access key and secret key. Click on others at the last. Okay. Hello.
Yeah,
You
I'm
getting
here.
it?
Mm-hmm.
and click on access, create access key. So you would have those keys in a format, in Excel format, and then you can authenticate it.
Okay.
Fine.
Yes.
So this is the first step. Now, what a developer does is, now once the developer is already connected to AWS console using a CLI, he creates a repository by the name of awesome. Okay. Once he creates a repository, I don't know why this is working. Access denied, permission denied. Now this is a sample file, right? If you remember, I modified the sample changes as well. Now, if I want a sample file to be copied onto my local, I click on create a pull request. Okay, so what I'm doing is I am a developer and I want to move that code into the main branch. Okay, so the default branch is main branch. Okay, I click on compare. Now, if you remember, I made one changes, right? Modifying into the existing branch. So let me create one branch first. Uh, let me, this is behaving very weird today. Branch
Yeah, maybe
name,
internet.
not an internet issue. I don't know why, but development branch from the main branch. I'm just creating like this. Okay. So now your default branch is a main branch, and now you are on the development branch. You have a file over here. Let me just modify this file. Let me go to the sample.txt file, click on edit. Few more changes made into dev branch. Fine. Write the name of the author, dev as of now. Click on commit changes. Clear? Now, already it is saved. I don't know. Just ignore this error for the time being. I don't know what is the issue. Maybe
Okay.
there is some maintenance activity going on AWS side. Maybe because this is holiday time, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
so they would be having some maintenance work. Now you are currently on a conflict branch. So now if you want to move from source to destination, you click on compare. Currently no conflict between, you can close this and pull request and merge. Okay, so there's no conflict as of now because both are on the having the same changes made. However, if you want to check it like this, and main branch, so there's no conflict, everything is clear. Again, let's make few more changes over here in the branch. Let's go to the main branch. It's causing a problem. Click on create a pull request. I think there's some maintenance going on for sure. Now source is dev, destination is your main branch. Compare. See, you got the changes. Now this is how your Git also works, right? You would see to it that what are the changes in your main branch, which your master branch is not having, or vice versa. If you want to merge those changes, you can do that. If you want to ignore those changes also, you can do that. If you want to simply go on create a pull request, you would do that and both would be merged simultaneously. Clear?
Yes.
Right. Also, if you want to commit it, each branch has a respective commit ID associated with it. Commit ID 1, commit ID 2, and whatever changes you have done. If you open this commit ID, if you open this commit ID, you would see all the necessary changes that have been associated with it. Let me open this. Who committed this at what point of time, what was the author, what was the parent commit ID, etc, etc. So this would give you an indication as well. If there are 15 people who are working in your team, they can see to it. Now see what all commits were made at what point of time, who did that. You can simply go to this commit visualizer and it can give you all the details. Also, if you want to compare the commits, that what commits were done and what were the comparison done, you can choose the dev and the main branch and you can see to it. So this was all about creating a repository and then creating a code inside it, comparing it and merging it. Any doubts until now on this, Conscience? If you have it, let me know. I can re-explain it to you 100 times.
Can we go back to like the very side when you created a repository and put in the code? Because I got how from the command
Mm,
line how you configured it and
mhm.
how you put it, but
Okay.
from the first time where you created this repository,
Mm.
I just kind of then and when you put the file inside the repository.
Okay, got it. So you click on code commit. This is your page. You click on create a repository. I'm redoing it for you. I'm just creating a test repository as of now, just for the timing. Put the names
Okay.
over here and click on create. Okay.
Oh,
So
oh,
your
okay.
repository is created. Now you have multiple options. Either you can create a file from scratch or
Or
you can
upload
upload it from your local.
code repository. Okay.
It's up to you, or from any other repository that is available, or you can create an empty repository as well.
Okay.
Fine.
Yes, it
There
is.
is a 100% maintenance going on in AWS for sure. This error never comes up in my life. I've not seen it very frequently. This is showing it up.
Maybe there's a maintenance going up.
Yes, correct. Maybe in Asia Pacific it is going on, or
Yeah.
in my region. So because of which every time it is like showing it up for no reason. So this is the repository. I hope you have got it. Now there are
Yes.
other things also. I will tell you how this works. You must have seen, right? If you want to clone your code, what you do is you simply copy this HTTPS request, and whatever you want to clone it, you get this entire URL of your repository. If I open this into a notepad, you will understand that what I am trying to say. The moment you click on this HTTP request, it would take you to a URL. And if I give you this URL and if I ask you to hit it, it will be at a location where my code is residing. It asks me for my username, the same username with which I have done the code commit, the same
Oh,
one.
okay.
Okay. Okay. So now, as I told you, the code is complete